Well, I like the way you podcast. No diggity. About to tear it up. Welcome to the John DuLong Show. Welcome to episode number 29. I guess we're going to hit 30 next week. I'm going to turn 30 in, fewer years than I would probably care for. You know what? By the same token, so I'm 28. By the same token of, people being freaked out about turning 30 and, those big milestone birthdays, honestly, 29 kind of freaks me out. I turned 29 this summer. Honestly, 29 kind of freaks me out more than 30 does. I don't know what that is. I was definitely more freaked out about 20 than I am about 30 looming on the horizon. I don't know. It's weird. Maybe it's just at 20, it's just the world of possibilities is still ahead of you, and it's it's that's kind of scary in and of itself. I mean, to have all of that potential ahead of you, and just feeling as I certainly did at that age, feeling like you weren't living up to your potential, and you just really didn't know what the hell you were doing. I think as you get a little bit closer to 30, you realize nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. I certainly still don't. I think I've got a little bit better idea, though, of who I am and where I fit into the world now than I did back then. So with that strange existential quandary dealt with this early on, we're not even 2 minutes into the show, and I'm getting into some heavy psychoanalyst shit, and I haven't even said welcome to the John DuLong Show. I'm John DuLong. Welcome to your weekly dose of the Monday morning existential mindfuck, apparently, but the Monday morning nonsense. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope that you got in touch with your mother. Of course, yesterday was Mother's Day. Of course, I'm recording this before Mother's Day because that's how time works. I haven't yet called my mother, but I will be first thing tomorrow morning. So be calling to wish her a happy Mother's Day, which I hope that you did too, if you're lucky enough to still have your mother in your life. Like I said last week, I'm total mama's boy. I really am. But honestly, I continue to have a really good support structure from my folks. I'm really lucky in that respect. So always happy to do that Mother's Day type stuff every single year. Fortunately, I'm not going to get the chance to just between school and work schedules. I'm not going to get the chance to see my mother on Mother's Day, which is a little bit sad. Mother's Day was actually when I introduced the girlfriend to my folks for the first time. We drove down to visit my folks. They live about an hour and a half to 2 hour drive, depending on how much you speed. So we drove down and spent just sort of the late morning and early afternoon with my folks, and I brought some flowers, and we just sat and chatted for a while, and then I went and met a lot of the girlfriend's family. Actually, now that I think about it, it was probably the first time that I had met. It was, I believe, the first time I met her older sister and her older sister's boyfriend, Wes and KL. I did that kind of backwards there. I think you can probably put together who's who. It's definitely the first time that I met her sister-in-law. And I can't remember if I had met her mom before that point or not. I think I had. I think I definitely had, because I'm pretty sure that I got a big hug. So, yeah. What's going on? Hope you're having a good week. Didn't get anything in the emails for your what do you need to do in order for it to feel like spring type of question. That's fine. If you want to email in for any topic, certainly do. Just make sure that you make it clear what you're answering, either in the text of the email or in the subject line, and we'll make sure that we get it on the air. I'm always happy to hear from you folks. It's definitely felt more like spring here in Halifax over the past week. We had a couple of high double digits, high teens in terms of the high teens centigrade, by the way, high teens Celsius, because high teens Fahrenheit for you American listeners, that's cold. Here, that's fairly warm. Let me just quickly do the math here, because I don't actually know I don't actually know what the temperature's like. I know that it's like freezing is like 21, and that's 0 here. I don't know. Just give me a second here. I'm going to do the math. All right, so it was like 19 degrees, I think, on Thursday, 19 Celsius, which is 66-ish Fahrenheit, 66.2 Fahrenheit. So that's a pretty nice day. That's still a little bit chillier than I'm a real big fan of. I like anything between 20 and 25 with low humidity. That's my ideal day. You know, it's like you can wear pants and not die, but you can wear shorts and not freeze. You know what I'm saying? You can wear a sweater if you want to, but you don't really need it. Particularly in like the middle of the day, it's probably a bit too much. But if you're wearing it, you're probably not going to sweat to death. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe it's a little bit different for you. But yeah, I'm getting excited for it to start to be a little bit sunnier. I like having a little bit of tan on me. And certainly walking to and from school when it's at sort of the sunniest part of the day is going to help me get that nice tan going, which I'm looking forward to. What else is up? What's going on the show today? Well, we're going to talk on the show today about that woman in I believe it was Yale who called the cops on one of her fellow students for sleeping while black. So we're gonna have a quick chat about that and just about the general speaking circumstances surrounding that story and race relations and so on. Going with real light fare today. Also going to talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Very, very. I don't know. I'm getting vertigo from the up and down story surrounding Brooklyn Nine-Nine and whether or not it's going to be renewed or canceled or whatever. Busy week from that perspective. As you know, I'm a pretty big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so spoiler alert, I guess. Happy ending, but we'll talk about that a little bit. And there's probably some other stuff that'll come up through the course of the show. This is kind of one of those things where I come into these shows sometimes and it's just really, really light in terms of what I actually have on the proverbial docket. And I worry that I won't get to the end of the show. I always do. We always get through this silly nonsense. But honestly, at this point, I think that it's a little bit like when I turned 20. The world is ahead of me, and I'm scared. I'm just absolutely terrified. So I don't know what to think about that. So let's talk about maybe like the topic for discussion this week. If you wanna throw an email to me at johndulangshow@gmail.com. This week's discussion topic, if you want to send that email in, will be, what's your favorite television show that's currently in production? I know that, personally, I'm super guilty of, not watching anything particularly current. I think maybe the ideal sort of television watching experience for me is, I'll maybe sit down and watch a couple of episodes of The Simpsons, and then maybe delve into the back catalog of Arrested Development, which, hey, season 5's coming soon, so that's exciting. Maybe I'll check out something that some sort of show that I've watched a million times. The West Wing, big fan of the West Wing. What's your favorite show that's currently on TV? What am I missing that I absolutely should be watching right now? So that'll be the this week's question, and we'll take it to break here, and we're going to talk about television on the other side of this break. As I said, we're going to talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine getting renewed in a very roundabout way. So we'll talk about that and a couple of other television-related adventures on the other side of this song. All right, before we get into the news from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, as you know, sometimes I will just shout out different podcasts I've been listening to that I've been enjoying. I'm gonna throw one of those out here right now. It's a HeadGum podcast. It's not another D&D podcast. It's the campaign after the campaign. They just recently launched their own Patreon. They're immediately going to make more money than I do on Patreon, but that's cool. They have way more listeners than I do. But honestly, I would genuinely, even if you've never played D&D, if you're not into that sort of nerdy sort of thing, I would give this one a shot. It's a very, very funny take on sort of that fantasy genre type of thing. The players are obviously very, very entertaining folks, very, very good in terms of their comedic timing, in terms of their actual comedy. The episodes are actually sort of starting to get to a point where there's a lot of good like emotional heft to them at the same time. Like, I mean, it's a lot of jokes. Obviously, they get themselves into just very funny sort of scenarios, which is what a good sort of real play-ish D&D podcast will do. But also on top of that, you still have the nice sort of emotional moments as well. And not to give away any spoilers, but there was a very good one on this past week's podcast. So not another D&D podcast. I definitely recommend that you check that out. If you are a professional wrestling fan and you're not listening to 83 Weeks, which is of course the Podfather, that mortgage guy, Conrad Thompson, along with Eric Bischoff, I think it's a really good look at the time when WCW was sort of on top of the professional wrestling world. Of course, 83 Weeks refers to their reign over the then WWF, now WWE, in terms of the Monday night ratings war. Very, very good listen. I listened to the first couple of episodes over the last couple of days, and they've got me hooked. First couple of episodes are on the creation of the NWO, which of course is one of those moments that has far-reaching implications even today, and then also the infamous finger poke of Doom. Both really good episodes, and like, so I like Something to Wrestle With, which is Conrad's show that he does with Bruce Pritchard, Brother Love, who worked in the backstage and the creative process in the WWF, WWE for years. The thing that I have against it, to a certain extent, is like it's a little bit in its own world in terms of the inner references, I should say like the self-referencing to previous jokes that I think kind of step on the actual story sometimes. Also, Bruce's sort of vendetta against Dave Meltzer. Like, I get it, you don't think that the dirt sheet writers always get it right, and sometimes wrestling fans take it as gospel. For a wrestling fan like me, who doesn't necessarily take that sort of stuff as gospel, but still thinks that a guy like Dave Meltzer is probably still a pretty good critic, it's kind of wears thin. There's less of that. Of course, there are only 2 episodes into 83 Weeks at this point. It could change. There's less of that sort of stuff, and I think like Bischoff, he's coming at it as the guy who, ultimately lost the Monday Night War. So, I think it's a pretty good look at things, because he's able to take sort of the long view and sort of say, yeah, we did really well for a long time. Then we did screw up. There's no hiding that. So let's get into it. So the original plan for this section of the show, in terms of what I was going to say, because I write down some rough notes in terms of the points that I want to get across. This little Word document or Google Docs document that I had on the go for this particular story has seemed to change every single day since it hit. Of course, this is sort of, we're getting towards the end of the year in terms of the television season, and this is sort of the period of time where networks will decide whether or not they want to order a new season of any particular show. And of course, there's a lot of different viewpoints as it goes into whether or not a show is going to get renewed by a particular television station. I mean, it's it's different things in terms of is the star power going to continue to be there? Are people staying on the show? Do you have backing from the from the viewership? Do you have the ratings? Do you have the advertising dollars? Like it's a complicated balance of things. But you know, you hear about some that you understand. Like, okay, designated survivor, it's a cool premise.